Good morning, children. In today's class, we are going to study what are the advantages of friction and disadvantages of friction. So, before going to enter into today's concept, we will discuss a small concept about friction. That is, friction is a necessary evil. I understand why the friction is a necessary evil. So, frictional forces plays an important role in our daily life. In some cases, friction is useful and we want to keep it, but in other cases, friction is harmful and we wish to reduce it. Are you clear? Few cases, friction is useful for us, it is compulsory, and few cases, due to increasing friction, it is harmful for us. It will damage our things. So in that case, it is harmful, and by the time we wish to reduce that friction. Understand? So now we will discuss the advantages and disadvantages of friction in detail one by one. So in that, the first one is what? Advantages of friction. So if it comes to advantages of friction, first one, friction enables us to walk without slipping. What is that? First advantage is friction enables us to walk. Are you clear? Walk without slipping. So now, let me see. Suppose we know that while we are walking, so basically if we'll consider some kind of foot, understanding? So wearing some kind of shoe. Okay. So now, let me imagine this is our ground. So person is walking now. So what is going to happen? So now, what they are saying, the first advantage of friction is friction enables us to walk without slipping. Means friction will make us to walk happily without any kind of slipping. So if this friction is not present, what is going to happen? Also will start. So what is going to happen? We are able to walk on ground because friction between the sole of our shoe. Understanding means the bottom part of our shoe and ground prevents us from slipping over the ground. Slipping over the ground. So which one is enables us to walk freely on the ground? The frictional force between the sole of our shoe and the ground. Understanding? Sole of our shoe and the ground prevent us from slipping over the ground. So this happens. How it will happen? How it is enables us to walk without slipping? Suppose in order to take a step forward during walking. So basically what is going to happen? Is it we are taking the two legs at a time or one leg after another one? Alternatively, we are always will walk one leg after another one alternative. Is it correct or not? So one leg, if it is in touching the ground, another leg automatically it will be lifting. Later again we will lift the another leg and again we will walk one leg after another. Understand? So in order to take a step forward during walking, we lift one foot. Understanding? One foot we will lift off the ground, means from away from the ground, okay, and push the ground backwards with other foot. Is it correct or not? So basically we will walk like this. While we are running also like this way. So one foot is in above from the ground, lift off from the ground. Another foot is trying to push the ground backward. Understanding? So if our foot is trying to push the ground backwards, what is going to happen with the other foot? Okay, if there were no friction between the sole of our shoe and the ground, then our shoe on the ground would slip backwards. Correct or not? So since we have pushed the ground, then our shoe on the ground would slip backwards if there is no friction. But since we push the ground backwards, the force of friction act in the opposite direction. Opposite direction means with our sole of our shoe, we are pushing the ground in a backward direction. Understanding? Foot tries to understanding slip in backwards. Okay, this direction. So what is going to happen if there is no friction is present in between the ground and our foot, then we will fall backwards. Immediately we will fall backwards, but we are not falling backwards because the frictional force, the force of friction is acting in the opposite direction to this, means friction act in this direction. Friction acts in this direction so that we are moving forward. Understand? So it is the force of friction which makes us move forward at each step we take during walking. Understanding? So if there were no force of friction between the sole of our shoe and the ground, it would not be possible to walk because our shoes would slip every time if we try to walk. So at each step, if there is no friction, then every time you used to slip continuously, you will be slipping on the ground. So that is the advantages of friction. So only the friction can enables us to walk without any kind of slipping. Understanding? So walking on slippery ground is difficult because the frictional force on slippery ground is much less, which may not be sufficient to prevent us from slipping. Okay, so it is also difficult to walk on a well polished surface. Well polished surface means frictional force is less only. So a well polished floor or a surface, or else like in ice, because the friction on these smooth surfaces is very small, which cannot prevent us from slipping. Understanding? So the frictional force created by that kind of smooth surfaces is not sufficient to prevent us from slipping, so we can fall down. So if a person throws a bucket of water on a smooth marble floor, or else even a marble floor, basically it will be a little bit slippery compared to normal floor. So if any kind of person throws a bucket of water on a smooth marble floor, and it would become even more difficult for us to walk. Is it correct or not? So walk on this wet marble floor, because the friction on wet marble floor, we know that we have already studied a few activities in last class. So a wet marble floor, if it the marble floor will become wet, means frictional force will become decreases. So because a layer of water on it is present, so the frictional force reduces, it may become very small, which cannot even prevent us from slipping. Okay, so many times people slip on wet marble floor and fall downs. Even nowadays you can see that so many cases they have fall down in a toilet or bathroom, people used to say, because nowadays we are using everywhere, we are keeping the tiles, marbles we are keeping. So these marbles, due to, if it is even a little amount of water, if fall down on it, surely it will cause us for low friction, so it will never prevent us from slipping, so we will fall down. So that is why so many cases, so many fellows used to fall down regularly in their inside their hall or somewhere in a bathroom or toilet, something, because of this marble floor. So that is why marble floors may give you the beautiful look of your home or furniture, but it is very dangerous. Understanding? So if you're having any kind of, it's like a grandparents and all, for them it is very hard for them, because they cannot walk properly due to their age and all. So definitely it may damage, it may cause us slipping for them regular. So when we accidentally step on a, suppose like banana peel throw on the road, we usually slip and fall down. Understanding? You know that Because the inner side of banana peel being very smooth and slippery, it will reduce the friction between the sole of our shoe and the surface of road. So, and this small frictional force is not enough to prevent our foot from slipping backwards. That is why you can see that whenever if we'll keep a step on a banana peel, always we will fall backwards, because during that time we are already pushing the ground backwards. But here the banana peel is very smooth inside, so it is reducing the friction between the our sole of our shoe and the ground, so we will fall always backwards. Okay, so that is the advantage of first advantage of friction, that is friction enables us to walk without slipping. Like that, the next advantage is friction enables a car to move on road without skidding. So you may heard that accidents, so many cases people used to fall down with a bike skidding or car skidding, something people used to say that. So the skidding means due to the decreasing friction, or else the road became much smoother, then it may causes for the accident. So that is our second advantage. So what is going to happen? Friction enables us, understanding, enables a car to move on road, to move on road without skidding. So if it comes to car, so let me draw some kind of car. So now let me imagine that we know that these are the wheels present. So with the help of wheels only, car will move forward. So now, if you observe carefully, what I'm saying, friction enables a car or any kind of vehicle to move on road without skidding. So the friction between the tires of a car, these are the called as tires. The friction between the tires of a car, and this is called as what? Ground. So this is ground, and these are the tires. So whatever the friction which is present between the tires of a car and the road enables a car to move forward on road without skidding. So whatever the frictional force present in between the tire and the road, which is enables the car move forward without skidding. Correct? Yes. So when the engine of a car makes the wheel of a car turn, so how the wheel will turn? Always wheel will go like this, clockwise direction. Is it correct or not? So when the engine of a car makes the wheel of a car turn, the tire pushes the road backwards because it is rotating like this. So it is trying to push the ground backward direction. Understand? So the road backwards at its point of contact. So wherever it is contacting with the ground. So always wheel is rotating. So every time the point of contact is changing. So whatever the point of contact with the road, that tire is always trying to push the ground backward. So the friction between tire of a car and the surface of road act in the forward direction. So when the wheel turns in the backward direction, then the car is trying to push the ground backward. Means the force the force exerted by the car will be pushing the ground backward. So the frictional force between this tire and the earth will act in forward direction. That is why we are moving forward. Okay, so the friction between the tire of a car and the surface of road act in forward direction, and it will prevent it from skidding. Okay, so in this way, the friction provides the forward force which drives the car forward. If there were no friction between a car tires and road, then the wheels of a car, understanding, would spin at the same place, but the car would not move forward at all. So the car would stay where it was. So even this also few times we can observe that if the tires will lose the grip, means upper layer it is having some kind of grooves, correct or not? So if these grooves will lose, means we will be after driving certain distance, definitely it will be reduces, so the tire will become very thin. So during that time you can see that if any even a small pit of a road, if the tire will go inside the small pit also, it is unable to overcome that small pit, because there is the frictional force is reduces in between the tires and road, then the wheel is always spinning in the same place. So understanding, because it is not trying to push the ground backward, so the frictional force of ground and the car wheel is also not pushing in the forward direction. So always we can see this will be happening in our daily life. So few times if your car or a bike are stuck, means there only it will trying to spin, because of it will, the tires will lose their grip, means so surely it will be happening. So like this, there is no friction between the car tires and road, then the wheels of a car would spin at the same place, but car would not move forward at all. So the car would say, understanding, would stay where it was, there only it is always wheels are rotating. So it becomes somewhat difficult to drive and control a car on wet road. So even that is the reason uh, during rainy heavy rains and all, we will stop somewhere, and later after completing of rain only we will go. So because the presence of water on the surface of wet road reduces friction and make it slippery. Understanding? So that is the reason during rainy season we used to reduce our speed and we will go very slowly, because road will become slippery because of rainwater. So and if it will reduces friction, there were more chances of skidding of car, especially when brakes are applied suddenly. So driving a car on wet roads needs extra care, just like a car. Friction also enables a bicycle to move along a road. So in fact, all the vehicles are able to move on road because of the presence of friction between their tires and the surface of road. So that is the reason why in a wet roads you have to go very slowly. Okay, so like that, this is the second advantage of friction. So friction enables a car to move on road without skidding. Okay, so like that, the next one is friction enables to apply brakes and slow down or stop a moving car. That is our next one. So here the friction is between what? Brakes and the wheels of a vehicle. So friction enables us to apply brakes. Enables us to apply brakes, apply brakes and slow down or stop a moving car, and slow down or stop, completely getting stop a moving vehicle, or else just moving car, something moving bicycle or car, some vehicle you just imagine. So what is going to happen? The brakes of a car works by again friction only. So if you'll observe, the particularly in a bicycle case, we can see that brakes will be present like that, somewhere very close to the tire the brakes will be like this. So whenever if you want to slow down your bicycle, or else if you want to bring it into rest, then if you press, this brake will go and will touch to the tire, and here the frictional force in between this will trying to slow down the bicycle wheel, or else it will be trying to stop a bicycle wheel. Like that, every vehicle they are having a brakes in their cars, a car or any kind of bus or some vehicle, the tires is having a brakes. So if whenever you need to slow down or if you want to stop, then if you press this brake wire, then these brakes will go on, will press tightly the wheels. Understand? They will stick to the wheels. So automatically wheels will slow down or else they will stop. So here also the brakes of a car works by friction. So in a disc brake or a steel disc attached behind each car wheel spins between two small brake pads. Okay. So when the brakes are applied to the running car by pushing the brake pedal Understanding? So the brake pads press against the discs of the rotating car wheels. So this produces friction between brake pads and the discs, so making the wheels to slow down or ultimately it will stop. Understanding? So the brakes of even a bicycle also works by friction. So when the bicycle is running, the brake pads of bicycle do not touch the wheel. There is a gap between them. But when we press the brakes, understanding, brake lever to apply brakes to the running bicycle, then the brake pads rub on the rim of the bicycle wheel. Understanding? So the friction between, if you press like this, then these brakes will go and will touch the rim of the bicycle wheel. So the friction between brake pad and the rim prevents the wheel from moving ahead. So due to this, the running bicycle will slow down and finally it will stops. So if there were no friction, then once a vehicle started moving, it would never stop because brakes would not work without friction. So in fact, had there been no friction between the tires of vehicles and the road, the vehicles would not be started or stopped or turned to change the direction of motion. Understanding? So what is going to happen? So friction enables us to apply brakes and slow down or stop a moving car or any kind of vehicle. So the friction between the brake pad and the rim prevents the wheel from moving ahead. So due to this, the running bicycle or any kind of vehicle slow down and finally it will stops. So if there were no friction, then once a vehicle start moving, it would never stop because brakes would not work without any friction. So in fact, had there been no friction between the tires of vehicles and the road, the vehicles could not started or stopped or turned to change the direction of motion. So that is the importance of friction. So that is the reason why we are studying. It is an advantage of friction. So like that, the next advantage of friction is friction enables us to write and draw on paper. So whatever the activities we are doing on the paper means writing, drawing, understanding. So everything because of friction. So that is our next advantage. So friction enables us to write and draw on paper. So we are able to write and make drawings on paper because there is friction between the tip of pencil or pen and paper. What is friction between tip of pen or pencil and the paper? So if this friction is not present, then we cannot write or we cannot draw any kind of painting on pencil on paper. So the pencil has a thin black core made of carbon. That is only called as a pencil. Pencil lead is made up of graphite. Understanding? So graphite is one form of carbon. So this all we will study in chemistry. Okay. So the pencil has a thin black core made of carbon, which is called as pencil lead. What is to call pencil lead? So when we write with a pencil, friction with paper rubs off carbon particles from the pencil lead, which, understanding, with stick to the paper and leaves a black marks on paper. Are you able to understanding? So when we write with a pencil, let me imagine this is a pencil. So whatever the friction between the paper and the pencil lead will rubs off these carbon particles away from it every time. Carbon particles from the pencil lead, understanding, which stick to the paper and leaves black marks on paper. Understand? So which we see our writing on paper. So similarly, when we write with a pen, the particles of ink rub off from the pencil refill due to friction with paper. Understanding? And this ink stick on the paper and leaves mark of writing on paper. Understanding? So if there were no friction between the pencil or pen and paper, writing and drawing on paper would not have been possible. It's not have been possible. So we cannot write and we cannot draw. Are you clear? So we cannot write with a pencil on a glass sheet because the glass surface is very smooth. Glass surface is very smooth. That is the reason why we cannot write or draw anything on the glass surface. So we cannot write with a pencil on a glass sheet because the glass surface is very smooth, due to which the friction between the tip of pencil and the glass surface is much less. So it cannot leave the black stains because it is very smooth, due to which the friction between the tip of pencil and glass surface is much less. So this friction is not sufficient to rub off black graphite particles from the tip of pencil. Okay, so a teacher is able to write on blackboard with a chalk due to friction between the blackboard and the chalk. So this chalk is also the same thing. So chalk is what? It is made up of calcium carbonate, CaCO3. Okay, so this calcium carbonate, it is one of the component of chalk is also one of the component made from the calcium carbonate. So when you used to write with the chalk, what is going to happen? The friction between the chalk and the board, understanding, will rub these chalk particles and it will be able to write whatever we are able to write on the, it will leave the white stains in that case, blackboard. So a rough surface of blackboard rubs off some chalk particles, stick to the blackboard and appears as writing on the blackboard. Writing on the blackboard. So that is the reason why we are able to write on blackboard. So like this is the fourth advantage of friction. That is, friction enables us to write and draw on paper or else any kind of blackboard. Okay, so like that, the next advantage of friction is friction enables us to pick up and hold the things in our hands. Okay, so if you are something I am carrying, suppose I am carrying this marker, I am carrying this duster because of friction. So how it is, I am explaining now. So you listen. So friction enables us to pick up and hold things in our hands. That is our next one. Friction enables us to pick up and hold things in our hands. Okay, so now we are able to pick up, suppose this duster or marker, and hold it in our hands like this. Okay, due to friction between this duster and the hands, my hands. Okay, so similarly I can hold a glass of any kind of, suppose I can hold suppose something like this. This is a marker cap. So I can hold this marker cap in our hands because of friction. Understanding, it is what in between this cap and our hands. So if the outer surface of this cap is oily or greasy, understanding, having like a film of cooking oil on it, like one layer of cooking oil is something you fill for, then we cannot hold it because by the time it will become more slippery. So then it becomes more difficult to hold it because the presence of a film of oil, film means it's like a one layer, a film of oil on the outer surface of any kind of like a glass tumbler. If you take glass tumbler or else one kind of what we can say pot or something, plastic pot or else a steel something, what is going to happen? Then it becomes more difficult to hold it because the presence of film of oil in our outer surface of glass tumbler reduces the friction between glass tumbler and our hands. So due to less friction, the oily glass tumbler tends to slip from our hand and it becomes more difficult to hold. It will become more difficult to hold. So it is easier to hold a, understanding, suppose earthen pot. Earthen pot means made with a what? Clay. Correct or not? Earthen pot. So if you take earthen pot is made with what? Made with a clay. It is made with a clay. So what is going to happen? So we can hold it easily because it is very rough. Understanding? But in our hands, if you take a glass tumbler, it cannot be easy. Understanding, because it is made with some kind of metal or some kind of plastic, so it is a smooth surface, is very smooth. So if it all again, if we'll make some kind of a film of oil, then it is very difficult to hold, because the rough surface of this kind of earthen part, the friction between this earthen part and our hand is much more, which make it easier to hold it. Understanding? And due to the smooth surface of this kind of a glass tumbler, or else this marker surface also very smooth, correct or not? A glass tumbler, the friction between this kind of glass tumbler or else a smooth, any kind of smooth object and our hand is much less, which make it comparatively difficult to hold it. Okay, so if there were no friction, it would not be possible to hold a book or else any kind of glass tumbler or else this kind of earthen pot or any other object in our hands. It is very difficult without any friction. So that is why if you take any kind of suppose you are climbing a smooth object, a smooth pole, let's suppose iron pole. If you take iron pole, basically iron pole it is little bit rough, so with the practice we can easily climb. Understanding? Suppose if I'll apply a film of oil on the surface, some kind of grease or some kind of coconut oil, something, then it is very hard to climb this iron pole, because it will reduces the friction between this iron oil film will reduces the friction between this iron pole and our foot. Understanding? So that is why we always when we're climbing, it will reduce the friction between our palms and the pole. So that is why always we will, even though you are trying to climb up, will come down because of reducing the friction because of this oil film. So this is the fifth advantage. Friction enables us to pick up and hold the things in our hands. So like that, the next advantage is, so the next advantage of friction is friction enables us to pick up and hold the things in our hands. So if you want to carry something in our hand, definitely friction must be the reason to hold the things. If not, we cannot hold the things, understanding, in our hands, or else we cannot pick up. Like that, the next advantage is what it is? Sixth one. So sixth advantage is nails can be fixed in a wall due to friction, or else any kind of wall, nails can be fixed on a wall, or else any kind of wood. Wood, if you want to keep the nails for the wood, due to friction only it is possible. So if not, nails cannot hold in wall or else wood. So we are able to fix nails in a wall due to friction. So when we hammer a nail into the wall, suppose if it is a nail, if I am trying to hammer into a wall, it is the friction between the surface of nail and wall which holds the nail tightly in the wall. So without friction, nails could not be fixed in a wall to hold things. To hold things. Okay. So nails and screws are also held in wood by due to friction. So if there were no friction, the nails and screws could not be used to hold pieces of wood together, and hence we could not make any furniture item like table, chair, etc. bench. So thus the friction enables nails and screws to hold things together. Friction enables even knots to be tied in, understanding, strings, understanding, knots, K-N-O-T-S. Knots can be tied in strings or ropes, etc. Okay, because of friction. So knots in ropes are held together by friction. Friction enables a person to climb a tree or a pole without sliding down all the time. Okay, so an oily or greasy pole has much less friction, due to which it becomes very difficult to climb up a greasy pole, because friction enables a ladder to be, understanding, leaned against a wall and not slip down to the floor. Okay, so the friction helps in the construction of even buildings also. Without friction, no building could be constructed. So friction enables the belts to drive machines even in a factories. So without friction, belts would not even drive machines. Understanding? Conveyor belts, like belts would be rotating belts. So these the advantages of friction. So nails can be fixed in a wall due to friction. Okay, if not, it is not at all possible. So that is the reason why it is very difficult to climb the greasy oil, even the friction enables a ladder to be leaned against a wall. Understanding? And not